Well, it's top of the hour, so we've got Scott Hart and Hart Family Lights. They've come out with some neat stuff to do with Coro recently, and so I'm eagerly awaiting to be enlightened by his presentation today. So take it away, Scott.
Thank you, Peter. Welcome, everybody. This is my version of converting Coro props to 3D print props, something that my wife has decided that we could come up with as an alternative way of not painting props and actually creating stronger props. So we started with our gnome props, and we're going to expand in the future. So I'm Scott Hart. We're in Titusville, Florida. We started in 2020. So this is our fourth year, and we have create custom props of Coro, and we have started 3D printing props for light shows. I'm currently a ride and show supervisor at Universal's Epic Universe. And fun fact, I'm a huge rocket nerd, and a picture of me there is at my first Florida Mega Mini. So get into the how and the why. So the how is we're going to use an existing Coro model as the base and modify it. And the why is, as I said, 3D printed parts are stronger than Coro. And with the new printers, you can use multiple colors and not have to paint the props. And this is exciting because lots of people have access to printers, and it's great to create your own items for your own show. So here's some examples. These are some of our gnome props. We have a holiday gnome that has a spot that the gnome is actually holding these items, and every prop has the same amount of pixels, so it's very easy to change out. And it just takes 3 bolts and one connector, and you can swap it out. Top left picture is our little mini duck, and the prop on the left is the Coro, and the one on the right is the 3D printed prop. And then the other examples, we have an Easter egg, a cauldron, and a watermelon slice. So key notes about this: I'm not an expert. I just like to learn and do new things. Um, there's always more ways to do it, and I would just say choose the best way for you. So our process it's going to require two main things, which is going to be the design software and the 3D slicer. For design, I use Fusion from Autodesk, and my slicer I'm using Bamboo Studio. Now for the hardware, I'm just using my desktop to run Fusion, and the printer that we have now is a Bamboo P1S with an AMS system to get the multicolored. So the process is going to use an item called parametric modeling. And if we have time, I'll do a demo of that also. But this allows us to change the design without redoing the whole 3D model. So an example of that would be if I have my Cora holes to 12 millimeters and it's too big for a certain pixel, I can change a parameter to make it 12.5, and then the whole model updates for every hole that has set to that parameter. So high level overview. So we're going to open our original model. We're going to create a sketch on that model. I'm going to project the design. Then I'm going to hide the original model, convert the holes to construction lines. I'm going to draw all my new holes using those parameters. And I'm at 3 millimeter offset to the edge. I'm going to extrude the whole model 3 millimeters. And then I'm going to add 7 millimeters additionally around the outside and near the holes. So now we can get into the live demo section of this. And I'm going to kind of fly through it just because if I was to actually do this whole process, it would take a lot longer than we have time. So this will be recorded and put on YouTube so you can reference it later. So with that, let's get into the live demo. All right. So here's Fusion. This is our a model we're going to start with. It's a piece stake that I designed that I want to put it up in the front yard. Holds 50 pixels. Get my notes. So with the file open, as I said, we're going to create a sketch on it. So I just go up here and I click the sketch and I click the prop. And then I'm going to project the sketch, which is going to project all these edges and create an outline of that. And then when I do that, I can hide the original model. And now I'll have all these circles that are already there. So the next step I want to do is I want to convert all these holes to construction. Now I could just click on all these and I can hit the X key, or I can go over here and hit the line type. So as you see, that creates like dash lines. So now if I was to I have two sketches here apparently. Yeah. Now you see those holes have dash lines, and if I click the surface, you don't see those holes anymore. Now I'm going to go back and forth up here on the top because I have different steps pre-done, kind of save a little time and make it a little easier. Because like I said, if I was to do this whole process, it would probably take way longer than what we have. So here is that step already done. This is a 3mm offset. So what I would do now is I would use my parameters, and I have my parameters up here. Fusion requires each parameter name to be 2 letters or more. So I just typed some random CI for circle, HO, I think is whole outer, and then OF is like the outs. I don't know what the F meant, but the CI is actually going to be the main hole for the pixel to go through. The HO is a slight step for the edges of the pixel to grab. And then the OF just gives a body for the hole to support the pixel. So like I said, the next step would be actually create all these circles. So I would hit C for circle on this sketch. And with parameters, I could just type CI. And you see I have a hole that size. And if I go over here to change parameters, you can see that hole is 12.75. If I click on the parameter, and let's say I want that hole to be 5mm, I hit it and it updates. And then we put it back. So with this step, I would do that. I would also do the other 2 holes. So I would do the HO and I would do the OF. So this OF is going to be a structure for the pixel to sit in. And this HO creates a small ring for the little tabs on the pixels to grab, just like it would grab the front of the Coro. So, and then this is a mounting hole. I typically add a 12.7mm hole to that for the same purpose. because I usually have this set for like a 1/4 inch bolt, and so that gives some structure for it to sit on. So we would go through that, and we would end up with something like this, where you have all your holes. So the next step is to actually make it a 3D part. To do that, I'm just going to simply extrude all these by using the extrude command. I'm going to click all these areas that I want extruded. And as you see, there's a lot. And if we zoom in, we are not going to click that edge. We're going to click every other surface but that one. Just like this. And so I would go through and you would click all that. But just for this demonstration, we're just going to go ahead and extrude it. I like to leave my sketches on the top surface. So I'm actually going to extrude it in a negative direction. So when I do that, if you see, we have a base of our 3D model. But of course, we would want to select all the other holes. So this one has that done already. As you see, we have all these 12.75 mm holes. So the next step would be to actually extrude these smaller holes. And what I do is I do that for 1 mm. So I would actually go through and pick all of these holes. Like this. And then I'm extrude in the same direction. So it's going to be a negative direction. And it's going to join. And looking at that, you see it leaves this little bit of a lip here. And it's 1 mm high. And that's what those little notches on the pixels grab onto. Now, these values here are what I came off just doing some rough measurements, some test prints to find out the best fit for the pixels. Now, if we go to our next one, this has that all done right there. So all these holes have that 1 mm offset. So the next thing is we're going to give it some strength by adding the other 7 mm to it. So that's just going to be another extrude command. We're going to only click the circles and the outlines. If we continue to do this, we would have the whole prop selected. And this is already 3 mm thick, and we want to add 7, so we actually have to go 10. And Fusion likes to make that a cut command because it's already have material, but we're actually going to tell it to join it. If you look now, we have a little bit of depth to all these holes. And this gives it a little bit more rigidity because this outer edge gives it some stiffness. And then these holes also give it a little bit of strength, but also support the pixels. So now we'll go to this one and we flip it over and you'll see this actually has all of it already done. And now, so the next step for this, since we've completed it, would be to export it as a model. So I usually use a 3MF or I use an STL file. And that lets you put it in your slicer. Now, the other thing with that is, what if this doesn't fit on your print bed? And I can tell you right now, this doesn't because it's slightly too tall. I think it's over, the bamboo can fit 256 millimeters squared, but I believe this is slightly over that. What you can do is you can actually split the model into separate pieces. What I like to do is make these little tabs. And now you see the model has two pieces. And in the tab, I also give it a little structure. And these tabs are slightly smaller than the other tab here. See a little gap. That's because if you don't have any clearance, they will not fit unless you sand it down. And the clearance I have here, a lot of times it's a very tight press fit. I have to push very hard, and it's very hard to get them back apart. But that's a good thing. So now we have our model here. Like I said, our next step would be get it ready to print. So now if I bring up my slicer program and I import that model we did, and as you see, it doesn't fit. And the other issue we have is printing it this way has all of this open space. So if you were to print it, it would give a lot of support structure. So one thing we want to do is we want to flip it over. So I can hit the F key to change it to face. And now we flipped it over. And you still see it doesn't quite fit that way. And what I can do is I can let the software tell me if it'll fit or not, or I can add another sheet. So now I could either just leave these just like that and print them, or I can let this tell me if it'll fit or not. It may fit. Well, look at that. It'll print on one sheet. So another good thing about this 3D printing is you see I had it set to print in white. Well, what if I wanted a different color, say red? It's very simple. I have this represents our AMS system that has 4 rolls of the filament. So all I have to do is just pick that number and I could change it. So now I can print it in red, I can print it black, I can print it in blue, whatever color I want, I can print it. I could even be a little different and create one part in one color and one part in another color. I have to move this because this is a purge ball. And then if I slice this, it's going to create the individual layers that the print will extrude out. And if you look, here's the first layer. And as you watch, it just builds up and builds your model. Gives you an estimated time and all that too, and how much film it takes. All right. Mark's asked all PETG. Yes, I do PETG just because PLA just does not last in the sun. It'll warp almost immediately, especially here in Florida. It's also more UV resistant.
Right, that's what I've read. Is PETG plus or anything like that worth it that you've ever seen?
I have not used PETG plus. I just recently got the bamboo PETG HF, which is just supposed to be able to print faster.
Right,
But
yeah,
I haven't had a chance to use it yet.
gotcha. Well, that's great that standard PETG works, so thank you.
Yeah, you could use PETG or ABS. Probably use ASA,
Right,
but
okay.
ABS and ASA are harder to print.
And a little toxic, right?
Yes. Yes, I know. I believe especially ABS puts off a lot of fumes. And you also have to have your enclosure heated, otherwise it'll warp.
Right, okay. Not a problem for me in Southern California there, probably.
Probably not.
Being outside certainly would. Thank you very much.
No problem. I mean, that's all I really have for the presentation. If you guys have any questions, we can start that.
Scott, I got a question. Now, is this all based on doing your own original props, or is there a way to convert your old existing Coro props to being printed?
So far I have only done my own props. I could imagine if I had an SVG or a DXF file, I could do it. But you probably won't be able to get that from a vendor.
Right.
Do you offer support for Fusion 360?
I would guess it depends on what kind of support it is.
Well, because probably a lot of people don't know how to draw in Fusion 360 yet.
Oh yeah, I understand that. Uh, yeah, it really just takes some time. I've just been learning it over the last few years. I was actually going to use it to learn how to design stuff in Machine, but over the time I just kind of developed into this hobby, and I use it a lot, and I use it for my CNC and also for designing 3D items.
Scott, maybe doing a quick 5-10 minute show of how you made that lollipop. Just like
Sure,
a
we can do
sketch.
that.
Going through the circles and then doing circular paths. I mean, it doesn't have to look exactly like what you've got there, but um, would be, I think that would help people a lot. And one of the struggles I know I had when I first started using Fusion was just moving the camera around and getting those basic steps down.
I would agree with that because even when I'm rotating a 3D model, sometimes I have to reset the view to get it to do it, or I have to use the cube.
Because that's the nice thing about Tinkercad is it's a little more intuitive on how to move with the mouse, unlike Fusion. So,
I
Well,
tried Tinkercad, and since I'm used to Fusion. If Fusion's easier,
oh, it is.
I think if I would have started in Tinkercad, I'd probably been all right. But all right, so we'll do a quick demo on that. I typically start with XY coordinates because on a CNC machine, that's what I'm going to be dealing with. Is X is left and right, Y is up and down, and then Z with my depth. And basically for that prop, I just started with a circle. I don't even remember the dimensions. We'll make it 6. And then I just did a rectangle to fit it. So probably need to do a center rectangle. Make that 6. Like see a Let me start that over. Here's another thing I've learned in Fusion is very helpful. If I click on this circle and I drag it to this point and I start moving down, you can see how I can move it left and right. But you see how that 10's highlighted? If I put a 6 in there, see that lock show up. Now, no matter what I do, it stays at 6 and I can move this up and down and it won't change. That's one thing Fusion likes is if like if I just stop this box, you'll see how these lines are blue and these are black. The black lines mean they're constrained. They won't move, they can't move. And I started with the circle started with the 0, 0 coordinate, and that's why it's black. If I was just to draw another circle out randomly, it'll be blue. Even if I dimension it and I make it 6, just like that one. The thing is that I can grab that circle and move it around. But like say if I gave it a reference to there saying it, you know, it's not the right one. I say the circle's 10 inches from there. See how it turned black? And I can click on it and I can't move it. Now, I think my other one's actually a different shape, isn't it? Yeah. So let's make this like 8 or 10. And then we'll make this, say 15. Oh, that don't work. Make it 30. So this will give me a base shape. An easy way for me to do this would be to draw a line across here. And I want to use this trim command. And I'm going to get rid of this upper section. And we'll get rid of these lines also. And then we can just delete these. We don't need them. Dave says with a 255 by 255 bed, it would take a lot of filament and time. But the biggest thing is the time. The filament seems to go further than you think. Now, I don't want these 2 lines as part of the model, so I'll click on them and hit X. And make some construction that turns brown and dash. And so now let's say we draw a 12mm circle. Oh, I forgot. It's in inches. And let's say we put it. Yeah, that works. 1 inch away from the center. So now I can create a pattern. I can do a circular pattern based on that center. And say 6, 8, 9. 9 looks good. So now I have some holes. I can do the same thing out here. Draw another one. And let's say we do that same distance away. And create another pattern. If we use the same number, it'll line up. So for the top, you can keep going until you hit the outer edge. And now say for the bottom though, we'll do another circle. Say we'll make it 1/2 inch from each edge. And now I can do a different type of pattern. I can do a rectangular pattern. I click this circle. Let's do spacing. direction will be this line. I drag them out. Let's say I change this to 1 inch. And I put 5 in there. 6. It's like 6 will work. And then I could drag up, do the same thing. And then we have our pattern of holes. That's typically how I use Fusion for creating props. Now, for a odd shape, I do a little different. Let's create something odd.
I think I seen a question earlier. What was your biggest prop you've done with 3D printing?
So far, it's been my minis, and I think the duck is the biggest.
Which
takes 3 pieces. It's not a full bed, but it's just the space it takes. Paul says he did angel wings. How big are they? All right, now see how this.
They're pretty big. I think it was 46 pieces. You know, it's almost an exact replica of EFL's wings. A little bit different.
46 pieces per wing.
No, it'd be 23 a side, right?
Oh, well, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Like for this random shape, I would create like an offset. Say of like 1/2 inch. And then we put a circle on it. And then what I can do from there, say like extrude this 10 millimeters. It only has 1 hole in it. And this pattern can only be done on 3D. It's pattern on path. So I can select the face of the hole. Then I can select the path. And I can leave it extent or spacing, whichever one you want. You do extent, what it does, if I go almost all the way around and I tell it to do 3, it's going to just put 3 over that distance. Spacing is going to do exactly what it's going to space them out that distance. So now if I was to just add more, I can see how many would look good or what the spacing would be. And I would basically do that. Do we have any more questions on Fusion? Still got like 15 minutes.
Well, if anybody's interested, I do have a small room myself, and at ahlights.info you can go to, and we do help, and we do this stuff in there.
For Fusion?
Fusion, Design Spark.
Cool.
On that web page, Nat, there's a little button that says Zoom. It'll take you to the main Zoom room, my room, and another one called Muddy Waters.
All right.
And if you want, Scott, you're free to join us too.
All right. Can I show how I divided a prop in pieces? Absolutely, I can. Where is the sketch? I actually divide it before I create the model. So let's say we'll just do this prop here. We'll just say that would be our split. Right. I'll actually offset the line 3 millimeters on both sides. And then what I'll do is I make a tab. I'll draw a line up. Let's just say it's an inch or half an inch. Half an inch. And then make that part there. Make a point. And I do that point half the distance. Use that to create a line there. And then I offset the 3 lines. I mirror it. Oops. Why does it keep doing? So now, cause it create the 3D version of this. Highlight it all. Extrude
How
it.
big of a gap are you using?
What?
How big of a gap between the two parts are you using?
Right now it has no gap.
Oh, okay.
So I have that part. Now I do the other one. And you see we have 2 pieces. Now for the gap though, you're talking about, I just go to offset face. I'll select these faces. And from my experience, I usually use a negative 0.2 millimeters. Very small, but it's enough.
On my bamboo, when I use 0.2, it slides right on through.
Mine I about take a rubber mallet too. I did a lot of experimenting on that.
Oh, so have I.
So how does that answer your question?
Now, how many different types of connectors have you experimented with?
How many different types of connectors? What do you mean by that?
To join two parts together?
I actually have 2, and
Yeah, I think he's asking about your dovetails. Have you done anything else other than that?
yeah, I have just I use Harts now, actually.
I use print and screws, print and place screws.
Print in place. Oh, I have done this with no joints and then put the heat set inserts. But that's just a lot more work.
I done a 4 foot by 4 foot Liberty Bell with all my connections were screwed together,
Nice.
print in place.
Was that flat or a 3D?
3D.
So like a round bell?
It's almost exactly like the Liberty Bell.
Oh,
Another thing I found out, if you want to do color changes on one surface, you put a small groove in there so you can color it easily too.
well, like on this, if I wanted this to be where this divide is, if I had another color in there, I would actually create. Let's see, edit that. I would take that out. And then I'm going to create another body in there. So still messed up. So now you see there are two separate bodies. And if I import this as a 3MF, that is its own, it'll show up as its own item, and I can just color it.
No, what I'm saying is like on the Liberty Bell, between the wood and the bell, I wanted the bell gold and the wood brown, so I put a little slot around it. So when you paint it in bamboo or orca, you just do an infill
I got you.
coloring.
No, there's always
There's
different
more than
ways
one
to
ways
do it.
to do everything.
Yep. Just like on the last one with the eyes. I wouldn't have thought to done it that way, but it's a really unique and easy way to do it. All right, so as part of this virtual Christmas summit, we're gonna offer, if you order 2 or more 3D printed props, you get free shipping. And we're gonna offer that until Monday. And if you want to order, reach out to heartfamilylights@gmail.com or send us a message on Facebook at Hart Family Lights.
Is there a website?
There was. I'm working on it again. But I have all the pictures of the props on there on Facebook. And if you'd like to get a copy of the presentation, you can reach out to me at heartfamilylights@gmail.com and I can send it to you. And this will also be recorded for everybody to watch. Is there any other questions?
No, Scott, I think that was great. Go ahead.
Got a question for AH Lights. Is there any way you can actually
What's that, Chris?
put up a link to your page so I can visit it?
I think you already know it, but yes, I will. For the others who don't.
Stop it.
Let's see. Oh. Whoops.
Well, anyways, Scott, thank you. This was very informative. What was you know, people creating their own props has long been a history with this, this hobby, and it's kind of gotten lost with the just having some really great coral vendors. And they just make it so easy, but there's a lot of creativity that we can bring with just learning Fusion and having a 3D printer.
Right.
So, all right.
And I did put a thing in chat and that how to contact us over in the other room.